Welcome to the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner Prepcast, where we guide you through everything you need to know for your certification exam. Whether you're just starting or looking to refine your knowledge, this course will set you up for success. Brought to you by baremetalcyber.com. Let's get started. The AWS well-architected framework serves as a guide for building systems in the cloud the right way. It provides structured best practices that help organizations design, deploy, and manage workloads efficiently and securely. Instead of leaving businesses to figure out architecture on their own, AWS distilled years of experience into this framework. The purpose is to help customers evaluate their systems and make improvements before issues arise. For the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner exam, you won't need to master every detail, but understanding the purpose and structure of the framework is essential. At the core of the well-architected framework are 5 pillars, later expanded to include a 6th. These pillars represent areas of focus for designing cloud systems: operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and sustainability. Each pillar has its own set of best practices, trade-offs, and benefits. The idea is that by reviewing your workload through the lens of each pillar, you can spot weaknesses and improve them. The framework emphasizes balance. No single pillar guarantees success alone. All must be considered together to achieve a strong cloud foundation. The first pillar, operational excellence, focuses on how systems are managed day to day. It emphasizes automation, monitoring, and continuous improvement. Instead of relying on manual processes, AWS encourages designing operations that are predictable, measurable, and adaptable. For example, teams should automate deployments, use monitoring tools like CloudWatch, and review operations regularly to learn from failures. On the exam, remember that operational excellence is about running workloads effectively and adapting processes for better results over time. The security pillar is one of the most emphasized in the framework. It ensures that workloads are protected against threats, data is safeguarded, and compliance requirements are met. Security best practices include enforcing least privilege, encrypting data at rest and in transit, and monitoring for unusual activity. For example, IAM policies control access, CloudTrail logs actions, and GuardDuty detects threats. For exam preparation, know that the security pillar is about protecting systems and information, as well as building a culture of continuous vigilance. Reliability is the next pillar, and it focuses on keeping systems available and resilient. Reliability involves designing for fault tolerance, planning for recovery, and testing systems under stress. AWS services like autoscaling, multi-AZ deployments, and Route 53 health checks support this pillar. For example, an e-commerce site must continue functioning during traffic spikes or hardware failures. Reliability ensures workloads can recover quickly from disruptions and deliver consistent experiences. For the exam, remember that reliability is about resilience, recovery, and reducing downtime. Performance efficiency is about using resources effectively. It involves selecting the right types of instances, databases, and storage to match workload needs. Performance best practices also include monitoring system behavior and adjusting as demand changes. For example, a company might use autoscaling to match server capacity with user traffic, or choose DynamoDB for high-speed data access. Performance efficiency ensures that systems don't just work, they work well, even under growth or changing conditions. On the exam, know that this pillar focuses on optimizing resources for speed and responsiveness. The sustainability pillar was added more recently. It emphasizes minimizing the environmental impact of workloads by using resources efficiently and adopting practices that reduce carbon footprints. AWS invests heavily in renewable energy and efficient data centers, but customers can also design workloads that use fewer resources, scale down when not in use, and avoid waste. For exam preparation, know that sustainability is the newest pillar, highlighting AWS's commitment to responsible cloud usage. Trade-offs between pillars are common. For example, maximizing performance might increase costs, while cutting costs too aggressively might reduce reliability. The well-architected framework helps organizations evaluate these trade-offs and make conscious decisions. Instead of aiming for perfection in one pillar, the goal is to achieve balance across all. On the exam, expect to see scenarios that illustrate how businesses must weigh one pillar against another, making choices that align with their priorities. The AWS well-architected tool supports this process by providing a structured way to evaluate workloads against the framework. Customers answer questions about their systems, and the tool generates recommendations for improvement. This makes the framework practical and actionable, rather than just theoretical. For the exam, remember that the well-architected tool helps organizations assess and improve their designs by applying the framework's pillars in real-world contexts. The benefits of adopting the well-architected framework are clear. Organizations that use it gain more reliable, secure, cost-efficient, and sustainable systems. It reduces risks by exposing weaknesses early and helps align technology decisions with business goals. For example, a startup can use the framework to ensure its architecture scales safely, while a large enterprise can use it to enforce governance across teams. On the exam, recognize that the framework is not just about design, it's about continuous improvement and alignment with best practices. The framework is also directly relevant to exam preparation. Many exam questions present scenarios where you must choose the best approach. Knowing the pillars helps you reason through these scenarios. For example, if a question emphasizes reducing downtime, reliability is the key pillar. If it focuses on controlling costs, cost optimization is most relevant. Understanding the framework ensures you can connect exam questions to AWS best practices confidently. Finally, the well-architected framework promotes continuous improvement. The cloud is not static. Systems evolve, threats change, and workloads grow. The framework encourages regular reviews and updates, ensuring systems remain aligned with best practices over time. This mindset of continuous learning and adaptation reflects AWS's philosophy of innovation and resilience. For the exam, remember that well-architected is not a one-time checklist but an ongoing process that supports long-term cloud success. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Operational excellence in practice means building systems that are easy to operate, monitor, and evolve. Best practices include automating deployments so changes are consistent, using CloudWatch to monitor performance, and learning from operational events by reviewing them afterward. Teams are encouraged to document procedures and continually refine them, much like improving a recipe over time. This pillar is about ensuring day-to-day management is smooth and resilient. For the exam, remember that operational excellence focuses on processes, automation, and continuous learning rather than just technology. The security pillar comes to life through specific practices. These include enforcing least privilege with IAM policies, enabling multi-factor authentication, encrypting data both at rest and in transit, and monitoring for threats with services like GuardDuty. Security also requires logging actions with CloudTrail and regularly reviewing access permissions. Think of it as locking not only the front door but also the windows, while keeping a security camera running. On the exam, you may see questions about which services or practices align with this pillar, so understanding its principles is essential. Reliability in the cloud is achieved by designing for failure. AWS encourages customers to assume that components will fail and to build systems that recover automatically. This includes using multiple availability zones for redundancy, implementing health checks with Route 53, and using autoscaling to replace failed instances. Testing recovery processes is also part of reliability. Systems should be able to bounce back quickly from disruption. For exam purposes, remember that reliability is about resilience and ensuring workloads can continue despite failures or unexpected events. Performance efficiency is supported by choosing the right resources and monitoring them over time. Customers should evaluate instance types, use caching with Elasticache, and leverage serverless compute when possible. Autoscaling and load balancing ensure performance adapts to demand. AWS also recommends reviewing architectures regularly to incorporate new services or features that improve efficiency. For the exam, know that this pillar emphasizes adaptability, matching resources to workloads, and avoiding bottlenecks that slow systems down. Cost optimization relies on eliminating waste and making informed choices. Best practices include right-sizing resources so they aren't larger than necessary, using reserved instances or savings plans for predictable workloads, and moving infrequently used data to cheaper storage classes like Glacier. AWS provides tools like Cost Explorer and Trusted Advisor to identify areas for savings. For example, shutting down idle instances at night can prevent wasted spending. On the exam, remember that this pillar is about maximizing value, not just cutting costs, and it requires proactive monitoring. The sustainability pillar encourages designing workloads with environmental impact in mind. This can include using auto-scaling to avoid over-provisioning, selecting regions powered by renewable energy, and optimizing code to require fewer resources. AWS itself invests heavily in renewable energy and efficient data centers, but customers still play a role in minimizing waste. For exam purposes, know that sustainability is the newest pillar, focused on reducing energy consumption and promoting environmentally responsible cloud usage. Trade-offs between pillars occur often in cloud design. For example, adding redundancy to improve reliability may increase costs, or optimizing solely for performance may reduce sustainability by consuming more resources. The well-architected framework helps organizations evaluate these trade-offs consciously rather than by accident. It teaches that no solution is perfect, but decisions should be aligned with business priorities. On the exam, expect to see scenario-based questions where you must identify which pillar is most relevant or what trade-off is being made. Governance is strengthened by applying the well-architected framework. It gives organizations a consistent checklist for evaluating workloads and ensuring they meet standards. Governance teams can use the framework to enforce policies, review architectures, and track improvements. This prevents teams from building systems in isolation that might ignore best practices. For exam preparation, recognize that the framework supports governance by aligning workloads with organizational and industry standards. Trusted Advisor can be used alongside the well-architected pillars to highlight improvements. For example, it might flag underutilized resources that tie into cost optimization or identify security gaps like unused IAM keys. Trusted Advisor provides actionable insights that directly connect to the framework's best practices. For exam purposes, recognize that Trusted Advisor is one of the tools AWS provides to help customers implement the principles of the well-architected framework in their environments. Architecting for resilience ties multiple pillars together, especially reliability and security. This means designing workloads so they recover quickly from disruptions, remain protected from threats, and adapt as conditions change. AWS encourages practices such as spreading workloads across multiple regions, using backups, and testing disaster recovery plans. Resilient architectures build trust with customers and reduce business risk. On the exam, expect resilience to appear as a key outcome of applying the well-architected framework. Exam awareness is important when studying this framework. Questions may ask you to identify which pillar a scenario aligns with, or which AWS service supports a pillar. For example, a question about encrypting data points to the security pillar, while shutting down idle resources relates to cost optimization. The exam tests your ability to connect concepts, not to recall technical details. Knowing the framework ensures you can map business challenges to the right set of best practices. The long-term value of the well-architected framework is that it supports continuous growth. As businesses evolve, they revisit the framework to assess new workloads, improve existing ones, and adapt to changing requirements. It acts as a living guide, not a one-time checklist. Organizations that adopt it early benefit from fewer failures, lower costs, and more consistent security. For the exam, remember that the framework is about ongoing improvement, ensuring systems remain well-architected throughout their lifecycle. As we close this episode, remember that the well-architected framework is one of AWS's most important sets of best practices. Its pillars, operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and sustainability, provide a comprehensive view of how to build in the cloud. For the exam, focus on understanding the purpose of each pillar and recognizing trade-offs. For real-world use, apply the framework regularly to improve workloads and maintain alignment with best practices. A well-architected system is not only efficient and secure, but also resilient, cost-effective, and sustainable. That concludes today's episode of the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner Prepcast. Be sure to tune in for the next episode and visit us online at baremetalcyber.com or cyberauthor.me for more resources, including news, mailing lists, YouTube videos, podcasts, and much more.